So thank you guys for coming. I'm very excited to have you here today with me. For everybody that doesn't know you, I would like you to just say a couple of words about you, and we're gonna start there, okay?
Well, thanks. Felipe, thanks for having us. We're so happy to be able to do this collab with you and tell the story of everything we've done. I'm Jennifer Burnham-Grubbs. I'm the CEO of Ionava.
Wonderful. Yeah, Felipe, always a pleasure. I'm Rich Ramberg. I am the COO and CFO of Ionava.
And I'm Jenny. I am the CEO of Magentic.
Okay. Thank you guys for being here. For the people that are going to be watching this, let's start by telling us what Ionava is and how can you describe the mission of your company?
Sure. So Ionava is an alternative to health insurance, and it's based in 400 million life years of mortality and morbidity statistics. And it's come at a very timely inflection point in U.S. healthcare, because the average U.S. consumer is spending over 30% of after-tax household budget on Affordable Care Act healthcare, and it's just gotten so bad, and everyone's looking for an alternative. We found a way to cut the costs in half, improve the flexibility of coverage, and also incorporate both what you might refer to as Eastern and Western. In other words, the full gamut of everything from traditional healthcare, urgent care, hospital, cancer, all the way through to really strong and well-documented techniques like naturopathy, craniosacral, nutrition approaches, everything else that sort of today you see cryo. There's all kinds of longevity practices, filling sort of a big gap in consumer demand.
Okay, thank you. What was the challenge or the uncertainty that you guys had that made you realize that you needed to invest more in customer understanding?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that any entrepreneur faces is product market fit and clearing up uncertainty on, does the product that you have a brilliant idea for actually fit with customers? And that's one thing that we have been exploring on our own and then collaborating with Adaptas on. Really understanding, is this brilliant lightning strike that we have something that consumers want? And is the way that we're presenting it in a way in which they would receive it?
But I'll add to that. What's funny is even after you prove algorithmic models and have actuaries and third-party actuarial firms say, yes, this is possible, really what investors end up saying to you is, how do we know that you can get customers, right? But then how do you get customers when you are pre-funded? It's this sort of challenge. And I think that's really where the genius of Adaptas has been key in terms of our roadmap.
Thank you. That's very kind, and that is a perfect starting point for my next question is, what made you choose emotional intelligence like Adaptas does against traditional research or just surveys?
I think it comes down to a blended mix. We live in such a society that's truly dynamic, and there's multiple factors at play in markets and in people alone, that relying on a hard science or a more qualified gut feeling and the emotional intelligence with that would be siloed to do that. So you have to have a combination of both to truly do that. And I think that's one of the things that we are seeing more throughout the journey with Adaptas in our customer understanding is hard numbers of yes, no, is this working? Is this resonating? And then more that subjective that really gets to the heart and feeling of like why those zeros and ones are actually meaningful to people.
Okay. I'll say the way Adaptas does these digital focus groups and uses the AI to actually capture the micro expressions and the body language and then gradiate it, it also makes it very easy, like you said, to sort of scientifically view the results. And one of the things I appreciate most about you, Felipe, is literally the way you brought true scientific method, A/B testing with, one variable only so that we know we're not messing anything up and getting skewed results, and the way you do things iteratively and sort of repeat the process over weeks and weeks. And that's not something I've personally seen anywhere. And I mean, full disclosure, when I was like sort of like a young person in the LA.
You're still young, I think.
Right. But, you know, when I was like early, you know, like before even having kids and stuff, I did some focus groups because I thought that they were kind of like cool and fun, and they'd give me like a couple $100 and stuff. And they were so not scientific at all. Like, first of all, you had these people who were like, sometimes told to just lie flat out so that the person who'd hire the focus group would hear what they wanted to hear. And just there was no science, I would say, at all involved in the process. So for me, I thought if nobody like Odaptus has existed before, that means pretty much any other focus groups have probably had some sort of imprecise sort of approaches, to say the least. And then knowing that we have really precise approaches just, I think, levels everything really up.
We have a marketing expert here, so I would like to understand your take on this.
Yeah, definitely. I'll jump on what you just said, and it's so true. When, in my experience in agencies, we would go to focus groups, and it would either just kill any creative. I love how there is data in the micro expressions, because even with these focus groups, if there's no scientific data, you might as well just be reading what people's gut instincts are, because some people can read those micro expressions, but you can't quantify that in data and prove it. And so having a system that can actually do that is incredibly valuable, because then I can be like, look, I know people are going to like this, or I know that this isn't working and here's why, but this will prove it or prove me wrong, and then I'm fine to be proven wrong.
Yeah, and that you're saying, I love this, because it was one of the expectations that we were having when we were starting the project. It was that, and I see this in many founders when I'm working with them, is that they are trying just to validate their egos. So they are trying to go and find only like the good things that people can say about your product. But the power of Odaptus is it's showing you the negative things that can be a problem in the future for you to address them now, and then you will save time. And so having that in consideration, because we have been discussing this back and forth during our collaboration, is like, what were your expectations at the beginning of the project when we were just discussing it after that conversation in Bryant Park? What were your expectations after that moment?
I gotta say, I was like, this is genius. I was like, anyone who's not doing this is an idiot. That's what I thought.
I'm gonna quote you in my LinkedIn with that phrase.
But you were funny, because you were like, Jenny, I want to manage your expectations. You might hear things you're not expecting. You might hear things you don't want to hear. The results might be very different from what you expect. And all of that is really valuable, because when you hear an objection you didn't anticipate, or you hear a response that points a downstream red flag, like you mentioned, you were like, that's great. Also, don't freak out, because that means what you get ahead of in your marketing approach. You're 10 steps ahead of that sort of throw it at the wall and see if it sticks, which saves hundreds of thousands of dollars, I can only imagine.
Especially if you're doing something that's complex and hard to understand. And you have to find that perfect language that like really helps people understand it. And that's what this is so perfect for. It's testing multiple pieces of language that are like, what is going to resonate the most, what's going to click, what's going to create confusion, and we'll see that. We'll have that evidence exactly there, and we'll see when it happened. And then we can ask why even in those questions, and then analyze those whys, and maybe there's something behind that. Maybe we'll learn something from that expression. Maybe it's triggering something in their past because of something that they've assumed. But now that we're changing so much based on what you're creating, it's a new, completely new way. So people are going to need to understand, okay, this is totally different.
I would say to that point, what made it so easy in the gradient, where like you see the bright red of like, ooh, they're not getting it, they're not liking it, or the way it's being communicated isn't working yet, all the way to the bing, 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 the green. It's like after that, it's so easy because you just skip to all the green parts and you see, okay, this is where it clicked, this is where it clicked. And then it's just like, well, now we know exactly how to explain it. And then also once they come back and tell you like why they like it, then they're using their own words to sell it to peers. And that's probably a lot better than us trying to sell it in our language. And then it's just like hacking the whole thing.
This is a lot about fidelity of signal. The signal we're receiving from our customers. And I know Felipe and I connect a lot on music, so the metaphor here is actually, I think, really relevant. Our expectation going in is like, we have like a good sense, but there's a lot of noise from what's out there in the market. And by going through a process like this in scientific, the hope is that, we would have a much more clear signal. It's like paying for premium Spotify and it just sounds better. So paying for Adaptus, our signal has suddenly become a better sound, and therefore we understand more about our customers in a deeper way, and can, of course, then everything we've been talking about from a marketing lens, tailor that specifically to them to help our messages of trust and credibility resonate even more. So.
Rich, you just said something that made me realize another piece of this, which is when you said the power of the signal, you said, or something.
Yeah.
Which I love because you're such a focused listener, and listening to you is such a core value, and music is too. So there's so many great metaphors there. When that signal is so strong, when you see in these labs, like, wow, the results that are happening, you've seen it with your own eyes. And I know this is one of the reasons you're so excited with us in Ionava and why we're collaborating so deeply, right? Is that you too have seen that Ionava's really got something, which we really appreciate too. It really helps founders because you're going to go talk to investors, and sometimes you're going to have a meeting with someone who literally just doesn't see you. They have a filter, they don't understand what you're doing, or they have preconceived notions that are getting in the way, and they're not reading the tea leaf correctly. And a founder who's really on that hard journey to getting funded can have those moments of lack of faith or loss of faith based on like some really mean rejections, right? But when you've seen scientific proof that you're hitting the mark, well, that founder can then look at that person and just be like, I actually know this person's wrong. You don't have doubt because you've also conducted scientific experiments to get rid of any edge case that maybe you were wrong to begin with. And so I think for founders, doing this, I would literally say this is one of, and I think I said this to somebody, I don't remember if it was you but other than creating your logo, I think doing your Adaptus work is literally the first spend.
It's the MVP.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, this is something that is clearly ongoing work. It's not like, okay, we've dialed in our signal at this moment in time. It's sounding great. We've got the resonance with the customers. They're buying our product now from an MVP. Wonderful. That's amazing. It doesn't stop there.
No.
It keeps going because we live in a dynamic world. Taste is always changing. Products need to iterate. And so this is something that is evergreen as a foundational pillar of our not only product design and the evolution of a product or subsequent products, but also the way in which we're connecting with customers and really understanding that ear to the ground, but in a very connected way.
Okay. Now that we're speaking about more about all the signals and all this data that we discovered thanks to Adaptus and the process that we've been doing with Adaptus, what will you say that was the biggest surprise of finding or seeing something during the project or of the data that emerged from it?
Well, for me, because after you did the whole thing, you were like, listen, Jenny, manage your expectations. I was like, look, I have 20 years of understanding consumers. I designed this thing based on, so much that I felt like I was hitting the mark. But Jenny, I think you talked about this, and I know there's two Jennys here, so let's just go by my nickname, Azar. Sometimes it can be hard when you're trying to say, hey, I know this, right? And they're like, well, what makes you think you know that, right? It's very hard to prove that. What?
She knows this.
But it can be really hard to explain why when you're in a complex field and you have background and stuff. And so when you managed my expectations and you said, Jenny, or Zara, you might be really wrong, just be prepared. But even if you're really wrong, it's okay, because that just means that we're going to, pivot and have even a better sort of approach and everything else. I was genuinely surprised that I was kind of like, right, this time on this one, and this is our, first kind of part of the study, that everything in our particular case was sort of like right on the money. It felt great. And it also feels wonderful to tell investors, we have 100% product market fit, as proven scientifically by our partner vendor, Odaptus.
I think the most surprising thing about this process is speed to which we have meaningful results. Okay, so if we've been in the space where market research takes a very long time to get something that's meaningful, bringing in the raw data, processing it, and then getting a report in a PowerPoint or something like that. Okay, that's the old way of doing it. Now there's more modern tools in research which are faster, but not this fast. And I think that was the thing that struck me as really important and surprising in this, is that within a few interviews, there were meaningful results that were validated by then the subsequent of other, couple hundred panels that we've run that said, yeah, actually that signal that you were getting within the first few is right because of the tool and process that's being used. So that's why that was sort of
just to give an order of grandeur to the people that are going to be watching this. What was that first time frame?
I mean, it was like
Once that we launched the product.
you launched the product.
First signal.
We talked in a day or two after there was just a handful of interviews. It was very small and fast before we had meaningful results. Meaning, you could look at even one or two interviews, and because of the process that Adaptus is using, that signal is really quality. That's what it means.
Okay.
It's the precision of the model, because I just don't think the old-fashioned kind of way of focus groups could be anything at all precise. And this is instead, it's like a metal detector on the beach. It's like you can see on the gradient exactly where you're hitting money, And the other thing is, it surprisingly inexpensive relative to the value that it creates, especially when as a founder, it just feels like you are bleeding money for every single thing. Like somebody wants to literally help you with your deck and they want 10K, 15K or whatever to do that. And you have this entire protocol that's this scientific approach, and it's informed, and the results are nearly instantaneous. And it's the key to honing your entire roadmap. And it was so accessible to us, even though we were literally bootstrap and pre-seed. And so that is also just, honestly, it's kind of you to do this for founders in a way that's actually accessible. You could be charging $100,000 for what you're doing each time for each protocol,
This is part of the mission that we have in Adaptus, is that there is a toxicity on the ecosystem of startups because they are focusing on the wrong signals, and therefore they are making investors bleed money. And because investors are bleeding money, good ideas are ending up without funding, because investors are losing faith on these things. So what we're trying to sell to the community is, we have the keys for you to build things that are actually gonna stop you right there and make you pivot, or ensure you that you can go to investors and tell them, look, we actually have market fit and your money is gonna be secure with me. And in the long term, if my vision proves correct, the ecosystem will be healed, because you're going to have less investors putting money into the wrong products. And therefore, I will say it like this, I like to say it like this, and it's kind of a joke for me, but it's real. At some point, I want to be the savior of those lives, of the startups that are struggling because they are not being able to detach themselves from the ego, to understand that they need to pivot because they didn't listen to their clients. So I have this vision of making this healing thing through human-centered design, and this has been my passion for 20 years now. So seeing that you guys agree with this, it's really, really touching for me. And it's really important.
It's really, really special, and especially in this age of AI, where AI kind of tells you what you want to hear. This is golden because you're really getting that time and that efficiency and that value like instantly. Especially in the grand scheme of things. Like if you compound all of those many pieces of time and decision and then impact, I mean, that saves everyone time, money, effort. Like people are going to be able to sleep more. Like that's great.
I think the compound interest that you just described there is really brilliant. I think that's the whole point, is you're able to telescope forward, find things out, and then zoom right back to ground zero, and then do everything with like the benefit of hindsight. I have said to people, it's like having the answers to the test before you take the test.
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, it's freaking brilliant.
It's like cheating.
It's like cheating.
It's like cheating. Yeah.
And it's
Cheat
really
code.
kind of you to share this idea of healing the ecosystem, because sometimes founders will come to me and they'll have like an idea, and I'll be like, this idea doesn't feel like it's worth what it's going to take to be a founder, because it's so hard to be a founder. I think. And you just have to have one of those ideas that's so good you can't sleep at night, literally every single day. You kind of can't sleep, can't eat until this thing is going to happen. Sort of, you need to have that much to overcome all the objections that'll probably come. And if it's not that strong, it's going to just waste years of your life, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, but that is not the worst thing. And this is what what I watched and what I had the evidence in France when I was very in the ecosystem in France, like in the whole country. And I saw hundreds of startups, and hundreds of founders that I had conversations with. And one of the founders that told me his story, and it really touched me a lot in order to ensure myself that this was something that I wanted to do as a vision, as a kind of a mission thing, is that he was pouring so much money from his own money. He was not sleeping because he had another job and while he was working on this. And then his family, his wife and his children were like falling apart, and his family was falling apart because he had no time to do any of this. And his idea was not that great. And he was very obsessed with the idea, and he needed the ugly truth, And sometimes the ugly truth is not ugly for you, it's ugly for your product, but you can gain a lot of value from that, because if he does what you guys did, and I know that we had some negative signals or negative aspects of the conversation that we had with clients or with prospects of Ionava, but that really helped us, and that really put us in a track in which we are like, okay, we're gonna avoid all of this because it's gonna resonate very bad with our customers, And if you just do and understand this, putting your ego to the side, like throwing it away from your mind, then you have a more healthy thing to build upon, I'm gonna go to a next question, and is, what was this moment of emotional analysis that when you saw something that completely changed, or that make you see or gave you an insight that you were not expecting at all?
I want to take this one. I've been dreaming that this product would exist like my whole life. Because yours, Odactos, and yours, but especially yours, because I need this validation of yes, no, like proving that we can sometimes read expressions, but then how do you take that data and make it meaningful? How do you take it and prove it to your boss? How do you take it and prove it to the client? You need info like this. They can't just be like, oh, I was reading everyone's micro expressions in the room. Like, they're like,
They're like,
cute.
yeah, I bet you're
That's really
expert
cute.
in NLP too.
Who are you, the guy from Lie to Me?
And cross-culturally, that's got to be so interesting too. Even just the changes there and there's so many nuances that I'm sure you're able to capture and say, okay, this is how you're going to sell it in California, but in New York, this is how we're going to use that language, or in France, or in whatever country. And that is just so incredibly valuable. And again, it just takes that time and it makes it so much faster to those decisions, so much faster for a job like me to like, okay, how do I actually market to these people? Mm-hmm. What do they want? What do they care about? Am I creating something that they like? Yes. Okay. How do I tell them that? And the fact that we can just do that so quickly, so accurately, honestly, it's so golden. And it's so human. That's what I really, really love about this too. It's so human. And I think we're missing some of that these days, even just in color. Like everything's turned white and gray and grayish. Or black in New York.
For those who don't know me,
I am wearing grayish, but I rarely do.
For those who don't know me, I only wear black, so I feel a little bit pointed by that one.
No, I'm kidding.
But it's true, like there's color and there's nuance and there are social interactions and things that make us different than robots. Yeah. And it's interesting that it's necessary to say today that the human is important, and making micro expressions, letting our body express ourselves, that is so important. And the fact that we're using that to bring important things to people is just beautiful. You're welcome.
You made me think of something too. I think it comes down to lack of confidence in the various industries to take a strong bet, right? There is this, and you see it in venture too, there's this group think, what's a safe bet? And it deteriorates products. You see deterioration of a lot of solutions. I mean, like that's, you know, if for the last 15 years, venture had been actually doing great things to help improve healthcare, we wouldn't need to come and do this, right? But for 15 years, we still haven't been able to figure something out. And I think part of it's, yes, like in our particular thing, it's complex, but a lot of things are complex. And then there's the safe bet whole, like, you know, we're not sure enough that could really work. So we're going to go instead with this thing. And I think a lot of brilliance can then just get like missed. And I think it's like that gray and beige and thing is like a metaphor for like, you know, you have to be really confident to wear like a whole purple suit, you know, like, or you know what I'm saying though, and just be like, no, I stand by this color. This color looks great on me, and it does. And I love this, and I'm saying something, and I'm saying something really clear. And I'm not saying something safe, but I'm saying something true, you know? And so I think you're right. This helps hopefully get rid of some of that, and then better ideas start to evolve.
Okay. Let's think on a single insight that you might recall that we gathered from the conversations that we had with users, and what was the impact that you got from it, from that particular insight?
I have one I want to show you.
You should go with that one.
I was shocked at how much the individual consumer actually knows about their individual health insurance now. Like it used to be 10 years ago that they didn't quite understand how they were getting kind of screwed, but they could feel it and they hated it and everything. But because it's just been so bad, and every consumer has had to just get so active and aware of where the gotchas are just to save their own hides, the users that we, or the, you know, this ICPs that we were evaluating, like they were like, well, I like that this is like a health savings account, but better because I don't have to fund the other thing. I'm like, what? I can't believe you know that. I mean, that you are dialed in because they have a vested interest. And that was a really, really interesting takeaway for me that these are sophisticated healthcare consumers because their bottom line has been affected by all of the pain points.
Okay. Any other insight?
No.
Okay. I like it.
Not at this time.
I refuse. Thank you.
I played the fifth.
Exactly. We have, I mean, just like kind of like adding to that point is it's not surprising that we have an evolution in our consumer base in the sense that access to information is so readily available. But what's surprising, and I think this is what Azara is really cluing in on, is the amount of sophistication in evaluating a product like this that we're putting into place. That really is a paradigm shift. And that even in these unprompted interviews we've been doing, they're so ready to evaluate something that is really quite complex, but at the end of the day is actually really a simple decision. So I think that is like the color I would add to this, that it's really quite impressive actually, which means that we're actually going to have a lot of rational decision makers in terms of this. So, when we look at our persona groups, we actually know okay, we thought maybe they'd be a little more emotional in say the 25 to 35 range, but actually we do need to layer in a fairly substantial amount of quantifiable evidence for the logical decision making with the emotional component of it for that persona group specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, there is a point that is very interesting in the first time that we took a look at the results, is that we saw a lot of negative spikes. And when we zoom into those negatives, it was what you guys are saying, it was people just complaining about how the current system was screwing with them and telling them and telling us kind of, as you were saying, the cheat sheet about how not to make the same mistakes, And for me, it was super interesting to see how these people were so informed. They were seeing an opportunity to pass an unconscious message of, please don't screw us as these other companies have done in the past. And please do this, and take this into consideration. And it was things about messaging, it was things about product design, it was things about legal design. And I think that is very important to have seen those things since the first interview.
100%.
What's interesting is that people's negative reactions are actually validating why your model is a solution. It's a solution to all of these problems that they have, that triggers them. It triggers emotions. It triggers all of these connotations because of everything that they've experienced and everything that they've researched and learned and realized this is not working. They're not you, though. They don't have your experience. They can't just be like, well, I'm just going to make a new system. But you can. And you did. And that's what this is. And it's just very, very cool that their problems are your solution.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All the negative spikes also help us when we show the investors. Because, one of the early sort of conversations we had was, I was just explaining, how dissatisfied consumers are, how much they hate their health insurance. And she was like, well, how do you know? I mean, you say that, but how do you know? And again, it'd be like, oh, my 20 years of experience, literally granularly working. That's not a very strong answer, right?
It is, but
it isn't though enough, right?
It's soft.
Right. It's soft versus hard. And this is look at the red.
Yeah, but this connects with what I was saying before, is that investors are now tired of the pitch storytelling kind of founder that comes and tells a wonderful story, and I'm the best. I've been working on this. I've been working on that. I've been working on all of these things, and it looks like a play, and it looks a little bit fake. So investors have been more reluctantly looking at those people maybe I need more evidence, So this is why they are backing companies that are making money, but not backing companies that are maybe pre-market fit thanks to us, And this is why we're trying to put there is you can go to these conversations and you can be an industry expert. You can have all the knowledge, but now you're backed by real scientific human data that stands behind you. And I see this as metaphorically, as if you're walking with the spirit of your customers behind you, and that is just empowering your speech, and putting those things there. And then when the investor is talking with you and you tell him, look, I have 20 years of experience. Yes, but now I have all these people behind me telling me all of these problems, yes, that I'm going to solve like this. And that is so powerful because you're showing them that you have a very scientific roadmap ahead of you, that you're going to invest your money well, and that you're going to make good use of their money. You're not going to be, I don't know, building slides in the middle of the living room of your office, just like Google did, just to throw money there for employees, but you're actually putting the money where it is.
I love that. And there's something in between there too. So there's the experienced founder, and there are experienced founders, and they're extremely valuable. So like there is a value, and a good seasoned VC should know the difference. Then there are people who are making money, who their companies look beautiful, right? They've got the numbers, they've got all this, but then the due diligence comes, maybe not due diligently enough, and then you wind up realizing like, oh, I'm being burned by this company that looks so great that's making all this money, but they're not. Mm-hmm. And that is so frustrating. And so this really is that middle. It's like, okay, we know we're going to make money, and we will, and you are going to be a part of this, and you're going to make a lot of money because you're getting in right now.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's this founder who really knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And doing it responsibly with integrity. Like
I like how you put there the due diligence thing.
VCs need this.
Yeah, because I'm saying always that when I'm talking with people that the new due diligence should start with the user. Yes. That is the phrase that I want to put out there, because it's the due diligence. If it starts with the users, numbers will come along with it.
I'm sorry, because I'm just shocked that it doesn't start there right now. Like, wow, again, like if people haven't been doing that, that's just so
it's expensive.
So crazy to me.
Because before Adaptos, it's really expensive to do what we did.
What is?
Before Adaptos,
yes.
It is really expensive.
And still
because
inaccurate.
If you want to do 240 interviews, as we did, 240 people, you have to spend a couple of $100,000 there in order to do all of these things.
Oh, yeah.
And we did a fraction of that.
Yeah.
I honestly think that VCs could and should use this when they're interviewing founders. Could that happen?
What do you mean?
I've been trying to get there.
So that like you're analyzing the interview itself.
Oh, like the founder's level of knowing their stuff and confidence.
And integrity.
Oh, for sure.
Like, is your face actually matching what you're saying?
I'm going there.
It's like a lie detector test.
I need more people listening to this today to back me up, so VCs start looking at me.
Oh, they will. They will.
They will.
Okay.
What we're doing here is actually moving up signals that later stage investment use and moving it to an earlier stage. So generally, when we're in growth stage investments, it's much more about the science of what's going on with the business. The multiple $100,000 spent on actual, quote, actual customer research in the old way of doing things, top line, bottom line, all this stuff, it gets more scientific. And traditionally, early stage investing is more that gut feel, more the art of venture and so forth. What we're actually doing is we're applying more of that science early on. Yeah. That's what this whole conversation has really been about.
Yeah, exactly, because the first team of product that comes to companies is what they do Series A. So when they raise $20 million, then they hire the first product designer. Before, it's only founders and engineers doing very weird stuff with the product. And this is where the research team starts to kick in, but it's only one-man army all the time. So it's mostly surveys and qualitative and quantitative data that is easily gathered and stuff, because it's only one person. But what I like to put Adaptos always is that it's a team of people packed in an AI system that can be enforcing a single-man person, transforming them into a one-man army, And that can happen even if you're a founder. You don't need to wait until you have the product team. But what's going to be interesting for Ionava, and this is something that, if you agree, we can put a date for next year to this date, and we have a conversation about this again, and it will be because we're going to continue doing this research with you guys. When we get the first product person and the first product team into Ionava, they're going to have all this material already built for them, and the power that they're going to have to build a kick-ass product from the get-go, it's going to be incredible. It's not going to be, I have to start building my own material, my own research and everything. And this is a catalyst for what you're saying, because then you're using Series A money for Series B operations.
Yes.
And that is freaking
So
crazy.
cool.
You know,
Yes,
because
man.
it's, as you're saying, it's an accelerator.
And onboarding is just an accelerated process too.
That's right.
I'm so glad because I couldn't possibly stand. Wait, so when you're moving fast, you have to be really fast and nimble, you know, especially when in our situation we have, you know, a critical moment where we have to enter the market, right? So imagine as a founder, I am hustling. I want, you know, my customers buying stuff 6 months from today. And then you would have to be part of a terrible, inefficient process that's been in the dark like that. And then, of course, it's getting delayed because of things like that. I would be so furious if that were happening. I would have no tolerance at all for it. So the idea that it allows lean startups to work more quickly and more efficiently, I think, is like really just where Odaptus comes in. And then the last piece I love, too, is you said that venture and other investors they lose a lot of money. They make a lot of bad bets. It's very high risk. It is. And a lot of people get money that they shouldn't have. And then that ends up pinching people who maybe, you know, like I've seen so many people get money on products that were terrible, that just failed upward and then exited because they dumped it on someone and they got out of there quick and then started something else, right? And then those firms will be like, well, we've already invested 80% of our fund, and now we have to be really, really, really picky about who the very last two that we take into our fund on, and they're afraid, and then they don't see those opportunities right in front of them. So this helps reduce the number of bad bets for venture.
Absolutely.
So let's move to the next question. Now that we're speaking about the investors and that we've been speaking about VCs and how they can start using this publicly paid advertisement from Odaptus for you guys to buy us. But you went through a fundraising process. Tell me more about it and how Odaptus was important or not in that process.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy for me to say that when you look at statistics, okay, female founders, and of course we're co-founders, but me being CEO, there's like, okay, there's a female, what are we gonna do? You know, they get statistically far less money. And of course that's really frustrating. And so when we were first raising, we were like, okay, let's get like 375K, you know, and then we can do so much with that because I come from, you know, like, give me $1, I'll turn it into 100,000, you know, but like I can stretch it and all that. Well, it's not actually fun to work that way. It's really difficult, and it's always easier when you have a little bit more, you can go further and faster with capital. So because Odaptus is so powerful and it has accelerated the proof of our value proposition, we're now raising 5 million as our first raise. Not that little 375K that I was like, oh, I hope we can get the 375K. Then I'll do this and this and this. It kind of took me out of what I felt was going to be bootstrap mode for freaking ever into, hey, if you want this, $5 million, otherwise get lost. You know, and that has been a really wonderful way to be able to operate. And I don't think, particularly as a female founder, that people might have laughed at me otherwise if I didn't have this kind of proof. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, I think having formed multiple companies and advised many others, the acceleration by utilizing this type of customer understanding, and specifically the Odaptus product, has provided a layer of legitimacy to all the early stage activities that we've self-funded today, which is quite remarkable. We've talked about accelerating in terms of not only the raising, but the product and all of that. And that's what it does. And to investors, when you have those conversations, how do you know about your customers? How do you know about the product and all this stuff? And how have you designed what you're doing? When you actually have scientific data that you put in front of them, a report, a visual, something that can be easily digested as part of the pitch deck, it makes it so much more real and understandable. The conversations actually, the skids get greased out of the gate and things move much more quickly and get to closing that round.
And as a differentiator, because up until Odaptus existed, which is the first time in history ever, which is always so exciting. As you know, I get so jazzed when we're at a moment in history where things that never happened before ever are happening for the first time.
You heard it here first, a moment in history.
It is.
Yeah.
And you know, because AI, and now taking AI and you bottling it in this specific way, which is one of the best uses of AI I personally have ever seen. I agree with you about the downside of AI in many circumstances. This has zero downside, which I really appreciate as well. And, excuse me, what I love is right now, okay, anyone else competing against us has just had a PowerPoint at their disposal, basically. I mean, then you show up and you've got the reel of these like results and everything else. And you're just like, you know, to your point, when people are asking you, as all, you know, investors ask founders, like, well, you know, what have you done that can prove that you're going to be able to do what you do? And then you have these phenomenal answers. Like, well, here's this, here's this. And they respond to you with respect.
Yeah, it's like playing poker, you know? It's like everybody's telling you, like, what do you have? And then somebody has a pair, somebody has another thing, and you have a royal flush in your hand. You just put it there, and you're like, voila, you know, and you take the money, you know? But I'm very happy to see that you guys advanced that much in the fundraising. And now you were talking about that you presented this reel of users telling stuff about Ionava thanks to Adaptos. Do you have any specific reactions from the VCs that watch that on those conversations that you have with them?
It's finally putting a disconnected audience to customer and connecting them to that. You know, we have these layers of investor, be it venture or private equity or whatever, company, customer. So there's this disconnect, but suddenly they're in the same room together through the quick sizzle reel. And in 60 seconds, they see, oh, wow, okay, these are real people talking about their real issues and their real affinity to what it is we're doing at Ionava or anyone else that uses the Adaptus product. So that makes it palpable for them and it makes it more real. And suddenly you can invest in something that's real, not just a deck.
It becomes tangible.
Bingo.
Okay, fantastic. As Ionava continues to grow, what kind of insights are you excited that we're going to be testing next?
I have an answer on this. I'm so excited. So
Let's do it.
You know, the process, I love scientific process. And so the process is, as you said, it never stops. The very next one we're doing is on our providers because they're a whole other part of Ionava's income stream. And similarly, we've done a lot of ground research, the soft stuff, lots and lots of conversations. We've definitely had people who've already come and asked to be in our marketplace. So all that's great. But now we're going to get scientific about it. And we're going to do the exact same process we did with our ICPs for the Vault users with the providers. And then again, it's going to be so exciting to prove why, you know, you're kind of always capital raising, then you're going to prove why the next 5 or the next 10 or the next 20 has to come in, because then you're like, well, look, you know, this is what we have to do because you've captured it again. So we're going to continue to do the same process. And then when it comes to, then you have a bunch of users, then you can do the same process with your actual users and you can fine tune where maybe there's a way to make it even better or catch additional opportunities now that you've built this ecosystem and you want to maximize and optimize for the profitability in it. So again, I don't see a world where you ever stop using this as part of your sort of product market fit studying and iteration.
What I love from a marketing perspective too is that it lets companies with integrity make their product easier for people. It's not like, oh, I'm going to sell you more stuff and like I'm going to get you. No, like that's not at all what this is about. It's like, how can I understand you better so that I can serve you better?
And when you do that, product flies off the shelf.
It does.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I'm most excited about for the future studies is taking the baseline of data that we have and observing evolution of need, evolution of desires, and evolution of resonance in what we're doing to best serve our community through what we're delivering. I think that's going to be the most interesting part of this massive amount of data that we're receiving in this process, and how that aligns up then with usage as well. Usage of not only our platform, but also of those subscribers who choose to opt in to share their wearable data and support their health journey through that. I think the data science that we'll be applying to this sort of like cross-functional data streams is going to be very fascinating. So I'm the most excited about that.
You just warmed my heart, because I realize what we'll be able to do, Felipe, hopefully in a year, maybe 2 years, depending on what how quickly things come from here, is the study of how Ionava changed our users' lives. Which is really, remember, like anything you're doing, hopefully you're not doing it just to make money, right? Like I love that, yes, of course, you're here to help people and make money, but there's a really big why, and you need a really big why. And our really big why is to help people live healthier lives. That's literally our big why, right? It's the how that we offer, because people need support in this crazy system we're in, and we've figured out how to articulate a system that creates that result. Imagine in a year or two where we are able to have studies of our vault holders, and they can describe how they finally have the money for once a month preventive massage, and the stress that they carried before because there was never money for a massage, and how their blood pressure literally went down, and that the Oura Ring literally measured it. Or when they stopped drinking as much, and then they raised their health score and they grew their money, and then because of that they were able to buy a subscription to Recess Soda, which is, for example, one of my favorite brands. It's magnesium sodas that are non-alcoholic, all natural, and they're great for cocktail hour, right? But they're expensive, sort of. It's $50 for a subscription and stuff like that. And in an economy that's been really compressed, a lot of people have had to make choices like, oh, I would like to do that if I could, but I can't, right? And revolutionizing what they're able to spend their money on and how it's helped their life is mind-blowing to measure too.
What breaks my heart, though, is that people aren't going to get the preventative care that they need,
Right.
and then having to spend afterwards for the medications to fix it, when it could have been prevented, and then you would have felt better too.
Well, the
So
data
it's-
really,
it's just
that's,
like
well
cruel.
documented.
It's cruel, the current system.
Yeah, it's the CDC has come right out and said that 80% of chronic diseases can be prevented or reversed simply through lifestyle change. 80%.
And I think that this is where emotional analysis is going to play a huge factor in the way that we're going to be building the product with you guys, and thanks to Adaptus. So I have a question here. Is like, and it's going to be one of the last ones. Is how do you see emotional research shaping the way that we understand the customer of Ionava?
Can you say that again?
Emotional
How do you see emotional research shaping the evolution of Ionava in the next months?
Yeah, this is really straightforward, because we're dealing with people's health. And that is one of the most personal things that each one of us has.
And precious.
It's incredibly precious. And so we'd be remiss to ignore the emotional component in terms of not only the buy decision to sign up for Ionava, but probably even more importantly, the ongoing connection to what we're doing and what we're doing together in that partnership between Ionava and our subscribers. Truly supporting their healthy choices through our liquidity solution. So that connection and the emotional signal and intelligence that we're using with them is going to be incredibly critical to not only deliver on our brand's promise, but also for our subscribers to really feel that value.
It's a structure for abundance.
Heck yeah, I love that.
Right?
That's right. That's 1,000% it.
Yeah, and also it's funny because I think someone told me once that like 90% of consumer purchases at the end of the day boil down to emotion. Is that true? Like, you would know,
I
Jenny?
believe that.
Everything falls to emotion because
100%.
Yeah, like-
emotion precedes cognition.
Yes.
So because it precedes cognition, before you make a conscious decision about everything, there is an emotional trigger that happens in your brain that then triggers the cognition and the action.
Well, this is actually a really interesting discussion point of the rise of agentic purchasing. So AI agents purchasing on behalf of consumers. Now, in our sphere, that's probably not what's happening today. We still have that direct human connection in terms of that emotional response, which is why that'll remain very important. But as we look at other products and services, and potentially even in the Ionava marketplace, we see a future where part of that emotional decision will be made up front, but then there's the set it and forget it kind of model where we have our AI assistants purchasing our supplements, purchasing our running shoes when we know, we've worn them out, that kind of things. So taking that emotional component into the buy decision and the research, and then applying it to the current trends that we will be seeing more and more of is something that we're absolutely considering and thinking.
I love that. Is that like setting an intention and then letting it do the work for you?
Absolutely.
That's very cool.
So I have a question here regarding your users and the way that we're building the product is, what do you think that will be the impact of you guys building Ionava through the eyes of your consumer, thanks to the research that you're doing in Adaptus?
I think we're actually building a world in which our consumers want to live. And that, I think, is what makes lifelong customers.
And it makes humans and trust worthy.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right.
All right. Thank you, guys. Any last words that you want to tell other people to follow your path into success?
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, first, I want to say thank you to you, Felipe. I literally don't know how I could have done this without you. I knew I was going to do it come hell or high water. But when you set out on a journey and like the angels appear along the way, and I think you've definitely been that for us. And thank you, Rich, for finding Felipe at New York Tech Week, and for Jenny and all the ways we've been able to come together with this incredibly potent collaborative team. I just want to express gratitude beyond anything else. And I think to any founders that are looking at the tools available today, I would say please be smart and listen to what you heard here today. Again, I said it before, but if you really think through what you've heard today, this is the way to do it. There's really no other way I could think of that would make sense to do what you're trying to do. So listen well and then act. Don't sit on a good idea, act.
Thank you. Rick, do you have something to say to our listeners?
Yeah, friends at A16Z, Techstars, Sequoia, call this guy up. He knows what he's doing. I think this is the cheat code to understanding your customers and accelerating the outcomes of the business, whether it's, quote, positive or a challenge, it gets you there faster. And that's really meaningful. So thank you, Felipe. Thank you, Adaptus. Thank you, our colleagues here.
From my perspective, in marketing, this is enormous because it lets us not market. It lets us brand. And I think there's nothing more powerful because marketing to me is like that scarcity energy. Okay, you need to buy this. I need you to buy this. But when you're a brand, you're just like, here's what I'm creating. I'm making a magnetic field and I am pouring all of my energy, not into making you like something, but into asking you what you want and then actually focusing my energy on making that thing. And then, of course, you want it. And that makes your business more successful. So it's like, oh, we have a tool for that now. Great. We have a tool to prove that now.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, guys, for being here. It's been great to be able to share what we did with Ionava and Adaptus. And let's hope that other people join the journey and start calling us from A16Z or maybe Sequoia. Let's hope for it. Thank you, guys.